Hey, welcome back. I have a fun one for you today, and I have a nearly impossible task of trying to pick out my top 20 list. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a top 10. I'm like, top 10, I don't think I can really do that. Let's do top 20. Top 20, that's a little harder. Let's make sure we include a few others for honorable mention here. So we're gonna start with some honorable mention knives down here. I don't have the Burnley. I don't have a Mosier currently, but they make great knives, for sure. I don't even know if I spelled that right, to be honest. The Tuna in particular, I handled one at Maker Syndicate and it was fantastic. Anyways, I also have on that list here Borka blades, which I don't have in my collection, but I do have the Brown Knives Cortex, which is on there. I think it's one of the great knives of all time. Obviously handled a lot. For me, it's not the all-arounder, but damn, it's really freaking good. So it doesn't quite make my top 20 list, but things about it that led into, I think, what he's done today on other knives are worth mentioning. The Urban EDC F5.5, honestly, it's pretty interchangeable with the Wii Banter on my list, but it costs so much more that it's not on the top 20. So my top 20 looks at everything. It looks at ergonomics. This one has amazing ergonomics, really good, aside from a slightly hot spotty pocket clip, but really good closing action, really good mix of thumb flick, finger flick. This thing is really good, but due to price and for what it is, it doesn't quite make the list. Divo knives, MASH actually wasn't on the list there, but I'll make sure and add it on there. For 132 bucks is right up there with some of the best in terms of the value category. Doesn't quite make the list just because I'm not passionate about it for whatever reason, but damn, lock bar access and everything. This is a very, very good knife. It's just not on my top 20 list. And then same thing, Maverick knives, Asuka, Maverick Concepts, sorry. Asuka, really cool all-around knife, beautiful knife for that matter. But just missing some of the things that for me make it a top 20, but these are all really good knives that no one would ever be disappointed with. So with that in mind, and while I talk about one more, oh, sorry, didn't mention this one here, the Boatwright Blade Works. This one I think is called the Fjord, but he has a few different models. He's doing custom, so I don't really include them. I'd say all around this thing belongs on the list in terms of an all-around knife. It's pretty phenomenal and has a beautiful Damascus, but it's very custom one-off, so I can't really include it on the list. And then there's also Walter Randolf, WR, who's not on the list, but could definitely be on there. So let's jump into the list, and again, like, you know, one other one I could throw in there would be the Spyderco Para 3, could definitely be in the top 20 list of all time. So another good honorable mention. I'll throw that one on the list too. I'll put it aside here so we don't forget it. But taking in the number 20 spot, a knife that is unprecedented fidgety. I've never had a button lock that does it quite like this, and I've seen many examples that can do exactly what I just showed you there. Is the CJRB Pyrite. It is a rollout, a finger flick, a thumb flip, and just the action on this thing, it's so good. As soon as I hit that button, it's drop shut. So I'm trying to go as slow as I can here. Drop shut. It is really just fantastic. And I've seen like $400 or $500 American-made CNC knives that can't do what I just showed you. And this is just a $50 knife. So easily in contention for the top 20 knives of all time for me. Number 19, the Knives Banter. Aside from not having perfect lock bar access, one of the best detents that I've ever felt. For $108 MSRP, this knife is just amazing. It has really good ergos, really good action, good enough fit and finish for the price. It's just a really good all-around knife. I like the aesthetics to a great degree, the spear point, the choke up. It's very good, and value is there. So Knives Banter, number 19. Oh, did I put it away? I did by mistake. Sorry, 1 second. Koenig Mini Arius, depends on what you want, but we'll call it the Arius line. There are a few on this top 20 list that I'm going to give the whole line because they're basically the same thing in different sizes, different shapes, and so on. But the Koenig Mini Arius for me really was impressed as soon as I got this in hand. Is very good. It's not perfect on the thumb flip. I do miss the thumb flip here and there, and it's kind of hard to roll out, and it's susceptible to lock bar pressure. If it was not for that susceptibility to the lock bar pressure, this would probably be in the top 15 or top 10 on the list. Instead, it's taking up number 18 on the list. It's very close with the next knife though, because they both have the lock bar pressure issue. But man, very good all-around knife, and I cannot wait until this knife has a non-flipper option, because I feel like a nice little choke up on a Mini Arius is just going to make this thing next level. Overall, really nice knife. $690 in this PJ, $770 with textured titanium. Not too bad for what it is versus what's in the market, and just a great all-around knife. And this brings me to the next one that I mentioned. Also a little susceptible to lock bar pressure, but what an amazing knife. The Koenig, the Eutsler DUK. And, you know, interchangeable with the Duckling. Both very good knives, but a little poppy on the rollout again, susceptible to that lock bar pressure. Look at this beautiful hollow grind on this one. I don't know if he does them on all of them, but this is the burst finish with copper accents. There's all sorts of variety. I personally really like the slotted duck. I think a lot of people do think that is sort of the top of the designs for the average duck buyer. But very nice knives. Again, a bit susceptible to lock bar pressure, so that puts it lower on the list. It leaves it around that number 17 for me, but great knife right now. Number 16, Winterblade Factor. Sounds crazy, just that ting, the different elements of the deployment, but also this lock. A lot of people skip over how good this lock is. Pull it back, knife closes. Open it, it just works. Pull it back, knife closes. He has one-upped the Axis lock, and no one's really talking about it. But this, because everyone talks about the magnets. A big part of the benefit of the magnets is what he's able to do with this locking mechanism. So good. It's really, really good. The knife overall, a little clunky on the ergos. Do like it, but it's not my favorite to carry. But it is a moment in knife history on innovation, both from a lock bar perspective, as well as, you know, like an overall design perspective with the magnets and everything. Very compelling knife, and very functional thumb flip hole, which I feel like a lot of flip holes are not done correctly to make that work well. Anyways, very good knife. Number 16 on the list. I was a little torn on this one in where to place it, but we're going to go with the HMC Transient, very popular knife right now, in kind of a rare flat straight back design. Not a lot of top knives right now on my list are going to have a straight back, but this thing just does so many things so well. It has this inset liner. You can also get it in a frame lock, but he's doing mostly this subliner is what he calls it. Really good finger flick, really good rollout, really good minimal flipper tab, where it's basically the design of the knife. It's not sticking out or getting caught on anything. And when it flips around, it goes away, right? It's not getting in the way of the ergos and stuff. So very nice design. This one's obviously got a really nice Taipan Damascus on it. On top of that, he's doing all sorts of really great work. He's going to start cranking out a pretty good number of these HMC Transients. Watch out for them. You'll start seeing, you know, 15, 20 a week coming out from what he says. And Jim is a great guy, just a great human being. HMC Knives, really a big fan of that model right now. All right, number 14. the Holt Morpheus. A lot of people's top 5 list includes the Holts. I'm just not a big flipper only fan, but man, this is one of the few flipper knives where I'm just like, oh, it's so good. A big part of it for me is that this one has this amazing Damascus steel blade, and that is just freaking beautiful. But it's also the overall milling, the fit, the finish, the people, Angie and Joe over at Holt are quite great to interact with. And the flushness of the blade into the handle when it closes, the action. This is a great knife. Flipper be damned. It's the only flipper only knife on the top 20 list. So it says a lot about what the Holt has done there with the Morpheus. And I do think the Morpheus is the best looking and most balanced looking of their models, including the Spectre and the Haptic. I really like the Morpheus. For me, again, this is my opinion, not an objective list. Hinderer. What do we have for Hinderer? I decided to go blue today. I've had a bunch of different ones on the channel. Whether it's the 3.5 or the 3.0, I'd say the one benefit of the 3.5 is that he's done them with these fullered non-flippers, which can be pretty nice, especially for people that like to do the reverse flick. But the 3-inch, from a carry perspective, again, you're seeing all non-flippers here. I'm not a big flipper tab fan, so I do appreciate that. Now, these are also very susceptible to lock bar pressure. You really have to learn to keep your finger off the lock bar on the Hinderer. Some of my early videos were from when I got my first Hinderers, and I looked like a total silly goose because I could not open my Hinderers at all because I was just getting lock bar handcuffs or whatever you want to call it. But those Hinderers have great fit and finish, great ergos, great weight to them. They're just really nice knives, especially for 425 bucks. You drop 200 bucks more on a scale, and you got a full tie knife for 600 bucks made in the USA. They're selling for under table right now. It's crazy on the secondary, so if you've been holding off, this is the time. Benchmade Bugout and Mini Bugout, two of my favorite carry knives, and I've recently switched from the regular Bugout to this Blade HQ 20CV G10 version. I probably pick up like a 1/4 ounce or something like that in weight, which no human can actually discern. Switching from those FRN or whatever they're called, Grivery scales or whatever. But you get a lot more strength here in the handle and a little more smoothness, a little less. This is a really, really nice model for me on the Benchmade Bugout. Big fan. And then on the Mini Bugout, I just go old school. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a tiny little knife that's like very utilitarian, so I don't buy the fancy ones, although I did see from 270 marked down to like 215 bucks at REI, the Mini Bugout Carbon Fiber S90V this week, and I was tempted. I'm sticking with my, basic one. These were 135 bucks when I got it. Now I think they're 153 MSRP. I still think for the money, it's just one of the best all-around knives you can carry. You can definitely do better for less money if you go Hogue Deca or something like that, but I personally like the ergos of the Bugout and the Mini Bugout more. Even with my big hands, the Mini Bugout felt like a toy knife when I first got it. I got used to it, but man, this full Bugout's been in my pocket quite a bit. Full-size Bugout's been in my pocket quite a bit lately this summer, and I'm a big fan. So those Mini Bugout from Benchmade number 12. Bull Knives Shamwari. It's interesting, I have not carried this one. I do have one that was previously carried that I've carried, but this is my favorite one ever made. This is from the December 2022 batch where he did washers, 3-inch, Spiro, the spirograph here, Sham. This is just an amazing action for washers on this guy. And I'm looking through the camera. I'm going to go around the camera real quick so I don't screw this up and kind of give you a slam shut there. You can slam these guys shut, or you can just have this amazing action. The Bull Knife Shamwari, there's just almost no action like it in terms of precision. It might have the best action of any knife I've ever owned. The reason it's not on the top 10 for me is because it's front flipper only, and that is not the way. as I think I heard Ben Peterson once say about front flippers. So number 10, whew, some people are gonna hear this and think I'm crazy, and based on some of the other knives that I've left either off the 20 list or didn't make the top 10, this may sound a little crazy. TW Price Dawn V2. If you like front flippers, you can front flip it. If you like to finger flick, you can do that. And if you like the thumb flick, and I'm gonna have some issues with this one because this Damasteel blade is so slick, the thumb flick is a little rounded off here in the joint. But if you get the regular stone washed or hand rub versions, they rifle out of there, no problem on the thumb flick. Or you can just walk it out like that. This knife, the fit, the finish, you don't have to have the Damascus clip or anything like that, for $295 is just so freaking good. I'm gonna bring the list back out here so you can see the top 10 list. So now we're here. Nothing on the top 10 list is anywhere near that price. This is less than half of anything else on my top 10 list. That says a lot. TW Price, Dawn V2. You don't have to go buy this $500 monstrosity here with the Damasteel and everything. This is an amazing knife for the money. So you add in the value, the action, everything. It's just really freaking good. Again, that's one that I think will probably be one of the most debated on my top 10 list. Let me drink some water. Number 9. Number 9 on the list. Not here. I don't even have something to stand in for it. Sharknivco Waka. I don't have one right now because I think for the price, the value isn't really there for me. At table price, I'll take one though, $1,100, but they're very expensive on the secondary, and I'm not going to carry it. I don't really do much with it, so I actually sold mine recently. But if I ever get one at table at $1,100, I'm going to be really pleased with that and keep it in the collection. I said that from the beginning. I like this knife at table. I actually said the same about the bull knife Shamwari. Much better at table than at secondary, but the bull knives Shamwari I actually own at secondary price. It's just, there's something so special about it. All right, Demko 8020 and 8022. Can also include the 8020.5 in that because they're all kind of just a different size of the same thing. These are some of my favorite knives ever made. If you watch the channel, you know these are knives that I think are particularly special. I'm just going to pull out an 8022 really quickly. Oh, I got the one I wanted too, which is great. Here's my prototype 8022 with the fat carbon. Roll it out, thumb flip it. Just the overall 8022 would be just an amazing knife. If you did this like machine ground made in the USA for $600, these prototypes and customs go for $2,000, so they're very expensive. So, you know, I'm not sure that that's for everyone, but overall, the Shark Lock makes these knives phenomenal. I mean, it's really on my top 5 list, to be honest. These top 10 here are not actually really in order, to be completely honest, now that I'm looking at it. So it's number 8 here, but boy, it could really be in the top 5. When people ask me my top 5 makers, Demko's one of them. So really fantastic EDC, really fantastic fidgety, great ergonomics, great blade shapes, and a lot of blade shape options with the shark foot, my personal favorite for EDC. This is my favorite EDC blade shape ever made. Big fan of these knives, and obviously put a ton of content on there, so I won't dwell on it too much because this video is going to be very long as it is. But man, easily made the top 10, if not top 5 list. Probably should be on the top 5. SPK Knives Lamia. This I would definitely move down below the Demko, but it is really freaking good. Really good. So I'll adjust that list for a final list, and I'll post it with the video in a spreadsheet that anyone can access on Google Drive under my Pocket Priorities Gmail. But man, this thing's freaking good. These V1s and the V3s that he just came out with, the V2 I feel like wasn't for everyone. They're very tight, kind of what I'll call Chris Reeves-ish. But these V1s and the V3s, now that they're on bearings, they're just so good. And sorry, I'm looking through the screen again here and just completely missing. I think this one in particular with this finish, I think he calls it the natural, I can't remember what it's called, natural something. It has something to do with a naturally occurring shape in some sort of something in the world. I can't remember what it was. It's a really beautiful knife, great ergonomics. Guy knows what he's doing. Beautiful blade with the little stepped blade pattern. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. SPK Lamia, one of the best all-arounds ever made. Again, there's a lot more V2s out there than any others, so a lot of people maybe had a bad experience, but try and find a V1 or a V3, and I think you might change your tune on that. All right, number 6, Brown Knives Mini FSD. And these are pretty interchangeable, the FSD in number 6 and the FSD-I. And I know that's kind of crazy. I could even just take up one spot with that, which I may end up doing, but they're very different knives in a lot of ways. As much as they are same, they are different. Same in terms of handles and so on, but different in terms of locking mechanism and experience for the user. Man, these things are freaking good. Gravity drop shut, fidgety, a lot of deployment methods, even if I don't know how to use them all. Love the lock on both of them. I like this one a little more for a bit more hard use. You know it's going to stay locked. There's some concerns for folks that, for righties, that this sort of sits in a, you know, for a lefty it doesn't matter as much, but for a righty, this sits in a spot where you might deploy it by mistake. But I think for most of us, that hasn't really proven to be a problem. Beautiful knife, fantastic maker, amazing engineering, amazing fit and finish, beautiful grind on the blade, and just fun. Beautiful, beautiful patterns in terms of the milling patterns. He's done 6 of them now, 5 of them, 6 of them. This is milling pattern number 4 here. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring out a big part of why he created this other version, which was to be able to do inlays. And I have this one here at the Damascus inlay and this amazing polished stainless steel blade. I mean, look at that action. It's freaking unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So good. Does everything. Beautiful knives, Brown Mini FSD, high on the list. Done a lot of content on that. Go check it out. Number 4, because that was number 6 and 5. Number 4 is the VC Edge interface. I'm gonna switch this. I don't know. This could be number 3. No, the top 4 are interchangeable. It really depends on the day for me. Some days this is my number 1. Some days it's my number 3, my number 2, my number 4. VC Edge for a 6. That is a 3.625 inch blade. Let's just show it to you here versus the Bugout. That's a massive blade, and this knife weighs less than that knife. Unbelievable. Ergos are great. Lock bar and action is great in both directions. Oh, it is another flipper only knife on my list. There were 2, my bad. Just says how good this is that it can be on my top 5 list while being flipper only. But it's that satisfying when you do the flipper tab on this knife. It's really fantastic. And at 1.5 ounces for 3.65 inches of cutting edge, it's just unprecedented. It really is. So VC Edge interface, top 4 on the list, if not number 1. Amazing, amazing knife. Number 3, McGinnis Spoke. And I have this one above that because I think it's a more of an all-arounder. I think that is why it ended up higher on the list. More deployment methods. He does make this in like a 2.5 ounce liner lock CF, even in this full-size McGinnis Spoke. The McGinnis Spoke and Extreme Hunter, I think, are his 2 best models. There are a few other models that he has for sure, but these are just so good. This one's a prototype and it's still fantastic, and this one's a frame lock. If you get his liner lock, full CF, it's really a remarkable knife. This one's probably more like 3.5 ounces if I had to guess, or 4 ounces. This thing's a little bit bigger than the ones that I saw at the show and got my hands on. And there's no like milling out of it or anything because this is a very early version. This particular one is on bearings, but most of them are also on washers. and they're just so smooth and good. The owners of these things want like double table right now. Don't pay it, but it is an amazing knife. Table on that knife is like already 1900. You go on the secondary, people are asking for like 3,500 bucks. Top 3 to 4 on the list, currently showing number 2 on the list, is the Hansen Onyx. Just an amazing all-around knife, amazing action. It's got the thumb hole, it's got the reverse flick, it's got the thumb flick. Boom. Just an amazing fit and finish, and it's a full custom, very rare. I'm not sure if that makes it higher on the list for me or what, but very rare. These will run 1,600 now. He's doing them at 1,200, and back in the day, he was doing them for 700. Part-time knife maker, only makes a handful a year. So sorry, it's very hard to get. Makes them both on bearings and washers. This one's a thin version. I also have a full-size version here in a Damascus with a thumb stud. Another Hansen Onyx here. This one weighs like maybe 4 1/4 ounces, but this one's on washers. God, it is just so smooth. A beautiful knife to just roll out, a beautiful knife just to look at. It just has a fantastic silhouette. And I think like people don't really talk about that a lot, but the silhouette of a knife is just about everything, right? I mean, the aesthetics really come down to that part of it. This one's on bearings, that one's on washers. They're very hard to tell which one's which. But if you get them side by side, you can tell. But if you just had them individually, you would probably think, oh, the washers one's smooth enough to be on bearings and the bearings one is smooth enough to be washers. It's just, they're both really good. Which brings me to number 1. No surprise to anyone who's watching the channel, but definitely a hard decision. And again, top 5 to 7 are pretty interchangeable, because one day a Demko could be my number 1 knife. One day it could be a Nas, but man, after handling every one of these knives on this table, this thing feels amazing. It's light, 3 ounces with 3 inches of cutting edge. He does all sorts of cool different designs. It does everything in terms of deployment. It employs 2 detent balls, so it's extremely easy to roll out, not high susceptible to lock bar pressure. You can thumb flick it. You can, well, apparently I can't right now. I'm so afraid to do it over this one is what's actually happening there. You can thumb flick it. You can reverse flick it, roll it out. The action is fantastic. It's not gravity drop shut, but it's a very light blade. He's making an XL version of this that probably won't be for everyone, because honestly, this full-size one already has a lot of room for even my decent size XL hands. XL being really probably an average American male. But man, these things just do it all. And this kind of goes to what I was saying on some of my other videos when I review knives. The way that this is cut together, the most important finger that controls most everything, it's this pinch here that controls your knife for the most part. You know, these add as well, for sure, but this is where most of your control comes from. So to have this nice 3-layer landing pad here makes the ergo so good. This is just one of the best all-around knives. I don't know what else to say. It does everything extremely well. Fit and finish is good. Action's good in both directions. The variety of what you can get is good. There's so many great milling patterns available for it. Occasionally you can get a real fancy Damascus one like this as well and really spice things up, but there've probably only been 20 or 30 made like this if I had to guess. The maker is fantastic. Daniel Osborne and the team just created a great culture there. He just seems like a great human. He and his wife, I think her name's Jen or Jenna, just treat their customers extremely well. It's just a really cool knife made by a really cool person, and I think has disrupted the knife industry in a way. You may not see it now and everything, but over time, I think people are going to continue to learn from this fantastic design and continue to do better and better knives, because I think this is the epitome of engineering in knives right now. You could also say that about the VC Edge interface in terms of what he's done with trying to push the threshold of lightness. There's just, I mean, to have milled out carbon fiber is pretty unprecedented also. So any of the top 5 here, or top 10 for that matter, can be just, I think, knives that influence what's happening in the industry. These are just really, really, really great knives. And they are set aside from the, you know, I've probably handled 500 knives in the last year. They set themselves apart from all the others for various reasons. And they speak to me. Again, this is an opinion piece. It's not necessarily gospel by any means, but this right here, this group that I put at the very top of the list, each one does something special. The locking mechanism and the, I mean, even the rollout, a lot of people don't talk about just the action on this knife, but the Shark lock disrupted the game. The lightness of the VC edge interface, the all around of the Roosevelt, the engineering and fit and finish of the brown knives and the action, the toughness and the washer approach and the overall ergos, and actually just the thumb hole is by far the best on the list here, accessibility wise and everything. And I, you know, put the McGinnis right in there with the spoke. It's kind of does a similar thing. And then the Hansen Onyx with its all around, you know, let me do this like this, with its all around offering also, like the Roosevelt. I think this one's 3.5 ounces maybe versus 3 ounces. They're both right in there. This to me is the display of what makes a really great high-end knife, meeting on sort of those 5-ish elements. And I haven't even gotten into pocket clip and stuff, but that'll sort of fall under ergos, the deployment when you flip it, the closing action, the aesthetics, and the fit and finish. Like, if you nail those 5 things and the pocket clip's good, you know, what more is there in for us to look for as knife enthusiasts? So this to me is the top of the game. Now I have a whole bunch of other very rare knives, different variants, Damascus, this and that. I got a whole bunch of other knives that I really love. But for like what makes a great knife, this pretty much sums it up for me. These guys are doing things that I think are pushing the boundaries of greatness. So that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.